novelist and an art historian.
Hello and welcome. I'm Guillermo Sapiro. I'm with the Pratt School of Engineering.
So Guillermo, how great it is to see an engineer in the museum.
I visit very often.
So have you been into the new reinstalled galleries and the beautiful Wilson collection, the Wilson Pavilion of medieval sculpture?
Yes, I have. I visited with my family about a month ago, right after the opening.
So, you know, all these objects are really interesting, but they were all part of something else. They're fragments of church portals, of facades, of chapels. They're all part of something, and yet, even in this really beautiful new installation, they're floating against the walls. Take these 4 figures, for example. We just saw them. I mean, they were part of the facade of a big church, right? They were part of many other figures. This was a really complicated composition. But the way we see them now is lined up and really detached from anything else.
That's actually quite interesting because I have the privilege to be probably almost every important museum in the planet, including Nasher, and I never learned what you're teaching me.
Could you imagine, for example, that these figures, like all medieval and ancient sculpture, originally was brightly colored? It was all intended to be painted, and that completely changes the impression. But when we go into the Wilson Pavilion today, and we see this sculpture as all stone colored, none of that color comes to light. Is there anything, do you think, that we could do together to put your expertise and my expertise to imagine something different for the regular museum goer who could actually see these things a little bit more as they were intended to be seen?
So that's a great question, and I think the first answer to your question, if we can do this is Duke University. Everything is possible here. So the answer is yes. Now let's figure out how we do that. We have these great programs supporting us, like the Wire and Information Initiative and Vast Connections. And I think that what we can try to do is to virtually color this. And I'm saying virtually because I know Sarah is not going to be happy if we actually paint them. So we are going to try to make people believe that they are painted and help them understand what you are teaching me right now, that these, like the dinosaurs, had colors, actually.
So, could I introduce you to one of my wonderful new colleagues, young colleagues, Professor Mark Olson in Visual and Media Studies?
I think that's a great idea because we can actually accomplish another of our mission here at Duke, which is to help our new colleagues. So I'm going to introduce you also to Mariano Tepper. He's a young investigator in my team, and I think that this idea we just had, they're the people that need to pull it together, and we can stand aside and see them do the great work.
All right, so.
Hey Mark.
Hey Mariano, how are you?
Good, and you?
Very fantastic.
What do you say? Should we both work together?
I think let's go for it. You know, one of the things we could do is build off of a class, right? One of the things that Carol and I have done in the past is make use of the museum collection. And we know that the Duke students, as you've seen, are an amazing resource to draw upon. So let's maybe think about doing a class.
I agree with that. So maybe we could teach a class with art historians learning new technologies and engineers and computer scientists learning how to interact with these domain experts. And maybe we can call this class 3D Design and Programming in the Arts and Medicine.
That's a fantastic idea. So fast forward to the end of that class where we had a lot of fun. I think one of the most memorable sessions was where we went from talking about the history of perspectival looking, Brunelleschi and Masaccio, to the mathematics behind 2D to 3D matrix transformations and camera modeling, all within the span of 2.5 hours. The students were, heads were spinning as were ours.
That was really intense. But one of the very cool projects that the Nasher was particularly interested in was the Painting the Apostles project. And in this project, Max from art history, Lex from liberal studies, and Nanyi from computer science imagined to paint the apostles using a projector and so color projecting the apostles. So, and that was a very cool project, and we had the idea of continuing with that.
Yeah, so we brought a team to, I think the Apostles would be a great group to work with. We know, for example, in the museum, despite the fantastic new collection, these Apostles, while being part of the most important part of the Brummer collection, we know that as we watch the surveillance video that people will go through their entire day and not pause for maybe more than a second or two to take a look at them. So I think there's a lot we can do to make them much more interactive.
So why don't we carry forward this project through a Past Connections project?
Fantastic. So we embarked on many hours of labor with a team of graduate students from many departments, Carolyn and Guillermo as well. And we began by doing some paper prototyping, coloring essentially, beginning to think about how these might have been colored, drawing on the historical research that we know from tapestries and others, and what we know about the medieval pigments.
So we also did a lot of projection testing with projectors on the museum and using very artsy Home Depot tiki statues.
We still have the statue. But later we began to project on the statues themselves. Here is an early test where the colors were quite psychedelic 1970s.
We also did a lot of interface design, and we experimented with different looks and interfaces until we converged to the final project.
And then there was plenty of coding. We worked in Python and JavaScript, HTML, and we had, again, students working with us throughout this process.
And we also spent many hours calibrating the regions that we were going to paint in the Apostles and aligning the lines and drawing, and that was quite an effort. But
if you were here in the museum in the past week, you probably saw us moving a line, going back, reloading it time and time again. And then, of course, even more and more coding. So after a lot of work and a lot of collaboration, we're very pleased today to invite you after this set of talks to visit the Wilson Pavilion and take a look at our new exhibition. But in the meantime, we have a short video that will walk you through a little bit about how the application works. So let there be light. So as a museum visitor enters the museum, they will be able to approach these two iPads and begin to select a statue and choose a color palette. That color palette we know is based upon the pigments that were available to medieval painters at the time. When you select a pigment, it begins to then paint in light on top of the statues themselves. And you can see that you can paint all of the different regions of the statues, and as you make your selections, for example that red, you can get more information about the rose madder and bright red ochre that were the basis of these pigments at the time. And you can make choices about skin tone, hair color, age, white hair, dark hair, as you work through these different statues. So we're really pleased to have this project going on. We know that it draws people's eyes, that not only is it fun to paint, but it also highlights details of these statues that you might not have seen just by the naked eye.
By the way, no Photoshop gimmicks in that video. So Oscar Wilde once said that the color can deeply affect the soul.
That's a great quote, but I think a better one I heard yesterday. Whoa, those statues are so cool. Were they painted? That's amazing. Some kid at the Nasher.